Hey guys, tonight we slip back through the misty folds of time to a quiet, ordinary morning in feudal Japan, before bullet trains, vending machines, or Wi-Fi. You are not a samurai, nor a noble. You're just you, a common villager. You wake up on a straw-stuffed futon, wrapped in a slightly musty cotton blanket, the sliding shoji door rattling faintly as the wind stirs. Outside, the sky glows with soft peach and lavender hues, and a rooster is already screaming like it's auditioning for kabuki theater. As you roll up your bedding and blink into the chilly air, someone's already banging a ladle against a bucket out in the courtyard. Maybe you dreamed of warm sake and soft silk robes last night. But surprise, you've got morning chores. And no, there's no snooze button on a rooster. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is. Drop it in the comments. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You slide open the wooden shutters and take in the scene. Mist floats low over the rice paddies, dew clings to the tall grasses, and a distant ox cart creaks across the damp road. Somewhere, a bamboo water fountain clunks with a meditative rhythm. You step out barefoot onto the wooden ngawa, the narrow veranda around your modest home, and feel the cool wood beneath your soles. It's peaceful, but it smells faintly of smoke and fish. Classic Japan. You're not alone, of course. Behind the paper walls, your family is already stirring. Your grandmother coughs herself awake in the corner, and your younger brother is quietly chewing on the sleeve of his robe in protest of being awake. Your mother, predictably, has been up since before dawn. The fire is already lit. You smell rice cooking. It's comforting, like you're wrapped in a steamed blanket of obligation. As the sun peaks higher, the village comes alive in slow motion. Down the road, a neighbor unrolls his shutters and starts sweeping his front step with a bamboo broom that's seen better days. The rhythmic swish-swish of straw against packed earth is almost hypnotic. Chickens dart between legs. One particularly rude rooster stares you down like it remembers that time you stepped on its tail. The homes around you are low, built with wooden beams and topped with thick thatched roofs, thick enough to trap warmth in winter. But if they ever catch fire, yeah, you probably won't survive that. Welcome to pre-modern building codes. A small boy darts past you, barefoot, clutching a straw hat too big for his head. He's probably late delivering tofu. You nod at him like the wise elder you are. You're 12, and he disappears behind a corner. The village is small, maybe 24 homes, a shrine, a communal well, and that one creaky bridge that's always just about to collapse, but never actually does. Historians still argue whether this kind of simple agrarian village was truly idyllic, or just romanticized through modern nostalgia. But here, in this drowsy morning light, it's hard to imagine anywhere else. A neighbor passes with 2 wooden buckets slung from a yoke across her shoulders, nodding at you as she waddles toward the well. Water fetching is a daily ritual, spiritual, if your back doesn't hurt too much. As she lowers the rope down the well, the pulley creaks and a crow caws dramatically from a nearby pine tree, like it's narrating her struggles. You offer to help, and she scoffs. You'll spill half of it, she mutters, but secretly she's grateful. You both trudge back in comfortable silence, the buckets sloshing with every step. There's no rush, no buzzing phone, no digital calendar telling you to breathe. Time is measured by the sun, and maybe by the town bell if something dramatic happens. You hear the faint clacking of Gaeta sandals approaching. Someone in a hurry. Probably the messenger from the headman's house, or worse, the tax collector. You duck inside to avoid eye contact. Better to be invisible than get voluntold for another firewood gathering shift. Inside, your home smells like rice steam and a faint hint of vinegar. Your mother hums as she fans the fire, and your grandmother picks tiny stones from a bowl of barley with surprising precision. She's muttering something about ghosts in the kitchen walls. You glance at the wooden beams and see nothing but shadows, but she insists. Always with the ghosts. You make a mental note not to eat anything cursed today. Outside, a thin fog still hugs the hills beyond the village. You squint toward the fields. Today, you'll help transplant young rice shoots. It's backbreaking work, but at least your feet get to splash around in mud like some kind of early spa treatment. You sigh. The good old days, right? And then, as if summoned by your sarcasm, an old farmer trudges by with a grin. He pats your shoulder and tells you about a storm that washed away half the rice crop the year he turned 16. And we still had to pay the same tax, he chuckles. His teeth are few and yellow, but his spirit is high. He smells like fermented bean paste and wisdom. You nod solemnly. You will think of him whenever someone complains about modern Wi-Fi speeds. You spot a dragonfly landing on the fence post. The village cat. Yes, there is always a village cat. Slinks by with the calculated grace of someone who has never paid taxes or touched a hoe. It blinks at you, then vanishes into the morning grass like a ghost. Or maybe your grandmother was onto something. Eventually, your father joins you outside, his calloused hands holding a bamboo rake. Time to head out, he says. You glance once more at the lazy sun climbing higher and try to memorize this morning. The damp smells, the chicken glares, the distant flute someone's playing down the lane. It's not glamorous, but it's yours. And you'll do it all again tomorrow. You hoist a bundle of firewood onto your back, the rough twine digging into your shoulders as you step gingerly down the muddy path that cuts through your sleepy village. It's barely mid-morning, but your chores are already stacking up like a game of historical Jenga. Except the consequences of failure include starvation, not mild embarrassment. Your first stop is the communal fire pit, where a group of housewives is already cooking soybeans for miso paste. Smoke curls lazily into the air, stinging your eyes as you drop the firewood beside the pit with a satisfying thud. One of the women eyes you with the warm disapproval only someone who watched you grow up can master. You're late, she says, hands on her hips, which are wrapped tightly in a faded indigo apron. I brought the good kind, you reply, patting the bundle like it's a luxury item, dry all the way through. She grunts, but her mouth twitches. A win. You nod and head to your next chore, fetching fresh tofu from the maker's shed before it's all gone. The tofu man is a wiry fellow who seems to run entirely on miso, soup and passive-aggressive comments. He ladles out blocks of tofu from a shallow wooden vat, steam rising as the soy-scented water sloshes over the edges. You hand over a few copper mon, just enough to make him nod instead of scowl. Tofu doesn't wait, he says, which doesn't mean anything but sounds vaguely wise. You balance the wooden container carefully in your arms. You've dropped tofu. Before. Once. In front of a girl. She still calls you Bean Boy. On your way back, you pass an elderly man polishing a stack of roof tiles under a persimmon tree. He's humming a tune older than the tree itself. One you've heard in lullabies, but never really understood. Used to make these by hand, he mutters without looking up. Now they come from the kiln in town. Not the same. You nod solemnly. You've never made a roof tile in your life, but you understand the sting of tradition slipping away. Historians still argue whether this slow shift toward centralized production was progress, or the start of rural decline. Back home, your mother directs you like a conductor. This bucket there, that basket here, mind the fire, don't let your brother eat the pickled plums again. He already has one in his cheek, of course, looking like a smug squirrel. You chase him outside before your mother sees. Out in the yard, a gaggle of chickens parts like feathery water around your feet. One of them, the biggest, most judgmental, bird of the bunch, locks eyes with you. You try to sidestep it, but it flutters up in a flurry of wings and pride. You yelp, stagger, and nearly drop the tofu. The bird lands victoriously atop the well frame, giving you the side-eye of a creature that remembers everything. You vow to outlive it out of spite. You retreat to the woodshed, where your father is splitting logs with practiced ease. You watch the blade sink into the wood, the satisfying crack echoing down the path. He gestures for you to help, and you oblige, though you know he's twice as fast. The axe handle is smooth and warm from years of use. You lift it, aim, and thud. Not quite clean. He grunts in approval anyway. Better than yesterday. Yesterday I hit the ground. He laughs, a dry bark of a sound, and takes the axe. I heard the new magistrate arrives next week, he says, not looking at you. Might mean new taxes, or fewer. Definitely not fewer, you mutter. He grins but says nothing. Somewhere, a hawk cries overhead, and a farmer shouts in the distance, probably at a cow that won't cooperate. Again. You stretch your arms and wipe sweat from your forehead with your sleeve. The day's just beginning, but it already clings to your skin. As noon creeps closer, you head back indoors to deliver the tofu. Your mother takes it without comment, which is praise. She slices it into neat rectangles and arranges it in a lacquered dish with green onions and a splash of soy sauce. You'll help with the millet cakes next, she says. Of course you will. You grind roasted millet into flour with a small stone mill, your arms aching in slow spirals. It's strangely meditative, like time only exists in the rhythm of your turns. Your younger brother stares at you with intense fascination, then drops a pebble into the flour for no reason other than chaos. You chase him out again, but you're smiling. Through the thin paper walls, you can hear someone playing a shamisen nearby. Soft, slow notes that waver like sunlight through water. A neighbor sings faintly under their breath, and it drifts across the air like incense. Later, you pass the bucket woman again. She's now feeding silkworms mulberry leaves, watching them with grandmotherly affection. They're picky, she says, but they make miracles. You nod politely, but really, You're just trying not to imagine hundreds of tiny bugs pooping silk. A dragonfly lands on your sleeve. You freeze, feeling the delicate tickle of its feet. It's metallic green, absurdly beautiful. You hold still, until it flits away, then wonder if that means good luck, or impending doom. Hard to say. Superstitions in your village cover both. Finally, you make one last delivery. A wooden scoop of fresh charcoal to the neighbor who sharpens tools. He's half asleep under a pine tree, a whetstone in one hand and a bamboo hat over his face. You leave it beside him without waking him. He probably knows it's there anyway. That's how he operates. As the sun shifts toward its highest point, you feel the heaviness of the day start to settle in. The rush of chores has slowed for now. There will be more. There are always more. But for this brief moment, the village breathes with you. Warm, grounded, alive. You stretch your back and head inside, where lunch and quiet slurps await, and possibly another fight with that chicken. You sit cross-legged on the worn tatami mat, your knees protesting like elderly villagers who've just been told the tax has gone up again. A low lacquered tray is placed in front of you, and steam rises from the bowls in elegant little spirals. The room is quiet except for the soft rustling of sleeves and the occasional distant thump from someone chasing a chicken outside. Probably your brother. Probably losing. Lunch is humble, because of course it is, but not without charm. A small bowl of miso soup, cloudy and comforting, with soft tofu cubes bobbing like shy swimmers. Beside it, a ball of rice sprinkled with sesame seeds, still warm from the pot. A sliver of grilled mackerel, its skin crisped and golden, leans against a tiny mountain of grated daikon. And then there are the pickles. Oh, the pickles. Bright yellow takuan, sour salty umeboshi, and crunchy cucumber tsunamono, all arranged with the kind of precision that says, yes, my kitchen is also an art studio. They glisten in the light and smell a bit like something you're not sure you should eat, but always do anyway. Your grandmother calls them rice thieves. They sneak into your mouth and make you eat 3 bowls instead of 1. You believe her. Everyone eats in near silence, not because anyone said you have to, but because that's just the rhythm of things. Loud chewing is a crime punishable by Grandma's glare, and you're not in the mood to perish today. You scoop a bite of rice and fish and let the flavors melt together. Umami, salt, a hint of charcoal. It tastes like sustenance, like being full enough to keep going, but not so full that you get sleepy and shirk your chores, which, let's face it, you still might. Outside, the wind rattles the bamboo shades gently. Inside, you sip your miso, and your mother finally speaks. Someone broke the soy sauce jug last night. The room goes still. Everyone looks at your brother. He holds his chopsticks midair and blinks. It wasn't me. It was definitely him. Your grandmother, without looking up, mutters, "We'll ask the kitchen ghost." Your brother swallows loudly. You all return to your meal, the thread of supernatural interrogation firmly established. After lunch, you help clear the trays, stacking them neatly and wiping down the surface with a damp cloth. Your mother nods approvingly. This is high praise. You step outside into the courtyard where the air is heavy and still. the way it gets just before summer unleashes its full, sweaty wrath. The kind of heat that makes you question all life choices, including being born without access to ice cream. The sun is climbing steadily overhead, and the shadows are shortening, curling under porches and trees like lazy cats. Even the chickens seem to have given up their vendetta, flopped sideways like overcooked dumplings. You wander toward the shade of the shrine at the edge of the village, past the well and the gossiping weavers. They nod at you between comments about someone's cousin's daughter who might be seeing the grain merchant. Scandalous. You listen with mild curiosity. Rural drama is really just historical reality TV. But keep walking. At the shrine, incense, smoke lingers in the air, and the faint scent of pine needles mixes with sandalwood. A tiny bell hangs over the offering box. You bow, clap twice, and drop a coin in. You make a wish. It's probably something dumb like, "Please let the chicken forget my face," or, "Let us have sweet potatoes tonight." The gods are used to it. There's a faint hum of cicadas starting up in the trees. It's the sound of summer in full swing. A chorus of buzzing that fills every corner of your brain until you forget silence was ever a thing. You take a deep breath and sit under a gnarled tree, grateful for the brief escape from the heat. A dog trots by, looking like it's on an important mission. It's not. After a while, your uncle passes carrying a bamboo pole with dried fish swinging from either end. "Going to trade with the next village," he says. "Watch the weather. Clouds are coming." You squint upward. The sky is clear, blue. Your uncle is never wrong, though. He once predicted a landslide just by how quiet the frogs got. Historians still argue whether this kind of folk wisdom was accurate, or just old men being confident with flair. You return home just in time to see your brother attempt to carry a bucket of water and drop it entirely on his feet. He screams. Not in pain, in drama. You hand him a rag, and he limps off like a battlefield casualty. In the kitchen, your mother is already prepping the next batch of preserved vegetables. Pickling is her superpower. Cabbage, daikon, eggplant, whatever the season offers, she subdues into crunchy, tangy submission. You help layer the salted slices into ceramic crocks, pressing them under flat river stones. In a few days, they'll be ready to eat. In a few weeks, they'll be strong enough to wake the ancestors. You help sweep the floor with a bundle of tied twigs. The floorboards creak like they remember every footstep since the shogunate began. There's something oddly satisfying about the slow back-and-forth motion. It's one of the few times your brain goes quiet. Someone calls from outside. A neighbor is delivering bean cakes wrapped in bamboo leaves. A thank you for helping mend a gate last week. Your mother hands you one as thanks. It's warm, soft, and filled with sweet red bean paste. You bite into it and sigh. This is as close to dessert as life gets around here, and you savor every sticky, delicious second. Later, as the sun starts to lower, the sound of a distant drum rolls across the hills. Someone is practicing for the festival. You'll be helping string lanterns soon. Maybe carry a float if the elders think you're tall enough now. You probably aren't. But you're hoping to bribe the rope guy with pickles. Back in the yard, your grandmother is now playing a game of Go with herself. She mumbles strategic advice to both sides. Don't trust Black, she says ominously. Too aggressive. You watch for a while, not sure if she's teaching you strategy or warning you about something metaphorical. Hard to say. She does that a lot. You settle onto the wooden steps again, your belly full, your arms tired, and your mind humming with the pleasant emptiness of having done enough for now. The sky is shifting to gold, the chickens are reluctantly climbing into their coop, and the wind carries the faint smell of barley tea. You lean back, close your eyes, and listen to the rustle of leaves and the slurp of someone finishing their soup nearby. For a moment the world is still, and you let it be. You wake up before dawn again, not because you're noble or disciplined, but because the rooster is a vindictive little demon who insists on announcing each day like it's a royal proclamation. You consider throwing your sandal at it. Again. But last time you missed and hit your neighbor's laundry. That earned you a week of side-eye and twice the laundry duty. The floorboards are cold under your feet as you slide open the shoji screen and step into the gray-blue morning. Mist clings low to the fields, and the outline of your breath ghosts in front of you. Everything is quiet. Almost too quiet. You find yourself whispering out of habit, as if the morning will vanish if you're too loud. You tiptoe through the yard to the little shrine tucked beside your house. It's nothing grand, just a stone fox statue, a handful of offerings, and a few weathered Emma boards with handwritten wishes dangling from twine. Some are hopeful, some are hilariously specific. One simply says, "Please let me grow taller than Daichi." You place a rice ball from yesterday's batch on the offering plate, clap twice, and bow deeply. The air is crisp and smells faintly of dew-soaked earth and old wood. Somewhere in the distance, a crow caws, because nothing good ever starts without a crow yelling about it first. Back inside, the fire has been rekindled, and your mother is already preparing breakfast. You help stoke the flame with dried twigs and breathe in the toasty, slightly smoky air of the kitchen as it warms. Breakfast is simple, again, but comforting. More miso soup, another helping of rice, and pickled burdock root that bites just enough to wake you up. You eat quickly but gratefully because your next destination doesn't wait for full stomachs. The fields. You sling a hoe over your shoulder and head out, passing other villagers doing the same. There's a camaraderie and shared toil, even if no one's particularly enthusiastic about it. Farming is, well, it's farming. Rewarding in theory, backbreaking in practice. The rice paddies stretch out in neat grids, and you step carefully onto the narrow paths between them. Mud already tugging at your sandals like needy toddlers. The sun starts to rise as you work, casting long shadows and painting everything with a golden glow. It looks romantic. It feels like a bad leg cramp waiting to happen. You work the fields methodically, your hoe chopping rhythmically into the damp earth. Water sloshes around your ankles, and your hands start to blister by the third row. But it's honest work, and besides, everyone else is just as miserable. Midway through the morning, the old farmer next to you points to a section of the field. "Leeches," he says ominously. You freeze. He laughs. "There were leeches there. Last season. Probably gone now. Probably." You give the area a wide berth anyway. Historians still argue whether these rustic warnings were based on ecological knowledge or just sadistic humor passed down through generations. During a break, You sit under a pine tree and sip barley tea from a gourd flask. The drink is lukewarm, slightly bitter, and absolutely the best thing you've tasted all morning. Someone nearby starts playing a bamboo flute, the notes rising and falling gently in the air like sleepy birds. A dragonfly hovers near your knee. You do not move. When work resumes, the village headman makes his rounds. He's wearing his official robes, which are only slightly less dusty than his everyday ones. He nods approvingly at your hoe technique, then grumbles about the state of the irrigation canal. You resist the urge to remind him that he was the one who insisted on rerouting it last fall. Progress, it turns out, is just a series of mistakes in fancier clothes. He walks off muttering about needing more volunteers. For what? He doesn't say. That's how conscription starts. You finish your portion of the paddy and trudge back home, your legs coated in mud and your hands stained a lovely earthy brown. You stop by the communal well to rinse off, splashing cold water over your face. It's bracing. So bracing, in fact, that you nearly lose your balance and fall in. You don't. But you almost do, and now you're awake enough to regret everything. Once cleanish, you return home to find your grandmother stringing dried persimmons in the sun. They hang like soft orange lanterns, swaying slightly in the breeze. She gestures for you to help, and you settle next to her, threading the fruit one by one onto the cord. The air smells sweet and faintly musty, like fruit tea left too long in the sun. She tells you about when she was young, how she once rode an ox to the next town just to return a lost sandal. You don't know if the story is true, but it doesn't really matter. The ox has become something of a legend in your family. Big, slow, and smarter than at least 3 uncles. As the sun climbs higher, you help set up drying racks for seaweed and cloth. The salty tang of the seaweed makes your nose twitch, and you sneeze right into a hanging sheet. Your mother sighs. You apologize. The sheet doesn't forgive you. Around midday, your uncle returns from his trade trip, his pack lighter and his wallet heavier. He brings gifts, dried squid, a tiny ceramic cup with a chip in it, it adds character, and a bamboo scoop carved into the shape of a rabbit. Your brother immediately tries to wear it as a hat. He is told no. He does it anyway. Your grandmother cackles. After lunch, rice with beans, pickled greens, and a humble soup made from dried fish, you find yourself roped into hauling straw bundles to the storage hut. You tie them tight and stack them in uneven towers. You're halfway through when you discover a mouse nest. The mouse stares at you. You stare back. Then you both scream and run in opposite directions. By late afternoon, the sky has turned a deep, endless blue, and your body is a collection of aches and sun-kissed skin. You wipe your forehead with your sleeve and stretch your arms wide. Birds are starting to return to the trees, and the shadows are long enough to trip over. You head toward the riverbank with a basket of laundry. The water is cool and soothing, and the rocks are slick underfoot. You scrub with handmade soap, ash and oil and something vaguely floral, and lay each piece to dry on the smooth stones. You pause, watching the current ripple. A frog blinks at you from the edge of the water. You blink back. There's a serenity to this moment, a quiet reminder that even in a day filled with dirt, sweat, and accidental rodent encounters, there are still places where time slows down, and for a while, you let it. By the time you get back from the river, the laundry flapping dry in your basket and your sleeves damp from enthusiastic scrubbing. The sun has started to mellow. That golden-orange glow begins to spill across rooftops, painting everything in the kind of soft light that makes even the outhouse look poetic. Dinner prep is already underway. Your mother is slicing daikon so fast her knife makes a rhythmic tock 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 on the cutting board. Your grandmother is muttering about how modern daikon don't have the soul they used to. Your brother is trying to sneak pieces of dried tofu from the tray and being swatted with increasing accuracy. You join in, washing vegetables and rinsing rice. Water sloshes in the wooden tub, and you watch the grains swirl like snow in a storm, over and over until it runs clear. There's a quiet satisfaction in this repetition. You don't question it. You just do it, because it's what your hands know. Tonight's meal is a humble nabe hot pot. Seasonal greens, tofu, slices of radish, maybe a few mystery mushrooms that someone swears aren't poisonous. The broth simmers over the aurori hearth, its scent rich and earthy, laced with miso and a whisper of seaweed. You help set out the bowls, ceramic, slightly chipped, full of stories, and soon everyone gathers around. You eat together, crouched on the floor, legs tucked under, steam fogging up your eyelashes. Someone tells a story about a fox spirit who stole a villager's voice for 5 days because he insulted her tail. Someone else laughs so hard they snort rice out of their nose. Your grandmother makes another joke about the kitchen ghost. You're almost certain she's serious this time. After dinner, you help clean up. It's not exciting, but the warm water on your fingers is soothing, and your mother sings softly under her breath. Some lullaby she's been singing since you were tiny. Probably since she was tiny. The notes drift up with the steam and settle, somewhere behind your ribs. Once everything is in order, the lamps are lit. Oiled paper screens glow gently, casting soft amber circles across the room. Shadows flicker on the walls, dancing like old spirits come to visit for the evening. You lie back on the tatami, arms folded behind your head, and let your eyes unfocus. This is the best part of the day. Someone strikes the shamisen in the corner. Just a few lazy plucks. No formal music, just idle fingers wandering. The melody doesn't go anywhere in particular, and that's exactly the point. It doesn't have to. It's just sound for the sake of sound, like wind in pine trees, or the rustle of kimono silk when someone stands up too fast. Eventually, your father pulls out the calligraphy set. Ah, here we go. The room shifts into quiet again. The kind that invites reflection, or, if you're 8, stifled giggles. Your brother tries to write his name, ends up spelling something closer to mud dumpling, and earns a firm but loving whack with the calligraphy brush. You try your hand next, holding the brush gently between your fingers, dipping it into the inkstone. The kanji comes out lopsided, bold but confused, kind of like you. Your father nods anyway. Good pressure, he says. Confidence Historians still argue whether that's how samurai learned swordplay, or just how families got out of hurting each other's feelings over handwriting. Your grandmother takes her turn and writes a haiku. No one says anything for a while after she reads it. It's about the river, and death, and plum blossoms, and the way dogs bark when someone's coming home. It shouldn't work, but it does. It's perfect. A few neighbors drift in during the evening, bearing gifts. One has brought fermented radish paste. Another, a single precious egg, laid late in the season. Gifts are exchanged without much talk, and they join you around the hearth as if they'd always been there. No ceremony. Just quiet companionship. Talk turns to weather, as it always does. Rain is expected in 3 days, maybe 4. Someone swears they saw a two-tailed comet last week. Someone else claims a tanuki has been stealing the laundry from their line. The village priest says it's probably just wind, but the way he says it, you can tell he hopes it's a tanuki. Way more exciting than laundry theft. You slip outside for a bit to cool off. The night is velvet black, stars scattered like spilled salt. The moon is high and bright, casting a silver sheen over the fields and rooftops. You hear frogs, and the occasional hoot of an owl. Your breath puffs out in little clouds, even though it's not cold, just still. A dog barks in the distance. Maybe the tanuki's back. You sit on the porch steps and swing your feet a little. The wood creaks under you. A bat flits overhead. You wave at it, just in case it's a messenger from the spirit world. Better to be polite. Inside, someone's boiling water for tea. You head back in, and the warmth wraps around you like a blanket. Your mother pours barley tea into tiny cups. You sip it slowly, grateful for the faint bitterness that helps digest a meal that was probably 40% tofu. Your brother is already dozing in the corner, his mouth slightly open and a dab of miso still on his chin. No one wakes him. He'll have a sore neck tomorrow, but that's future him's problem. Eventually, it's time to prepare for bed. The futons are unrolled, the quilts aired out. You help shake the pillows, watching the dust motes swirl in the lamplight like sleepy fireflies. You change into your night clothes, just a loose cotton, robe soft from countless washings, and crawl under the covers. The tatami mat creaks as you shift into place, and the quilt is warm but a little lumpy in the middle. Probably a straw clump that gave up trying to be flat. The lanterns are dimmed, one by one, until only the faint glow of the dying coals remains in the hearth. And as you lie there, listening to the nighttime sounds, the distant frog chorus, the creak of an old roof beam settling, your father's quiet breathing 2 mats over, you realize something. You've done enough for today. You don't have to fix anything or prove anything or chase anything. You just have to rest, so you do. You wake later than usual the next morning. Not by choice, but because someone has conveniently forgotten to relight the fire. And the chill seeping into your futon is working its way directly into your spine. Your first coherent thought is that whoever was on fire duty is officially on your grudge list. Possibly forever. You wriggle out from under the quilt, your hair sticking up in all directions, and pad softly across the tatami. The floor is unforgivingly cold, and your breath floats in the air like a lazy ghost looking for breakfast. You throw open the shoji screen just enough to peek outside, and there it is. Snow. The world has turned white overnight. The thatched rooftops wear crisp white hats. The trees sag under powdered branches, and the fields are blanketed in undisturbed fluff. The pond is frozen over, and the neighbor's dog is barking at it like it personally offended him. Winter has arrived. You grab your robe tighter around yourself and shuffle to the hearth where your mother is already coaxing the embers back to life. She doesn't comment on your lateness. She just hands you a small square of roasted sweet potato and tells you to chew slowly. You do. It's warm and sugary, and it melts on your tongue like it was made to fix cold mornings and grumpy moods. The rest of the house wakes gradually, moving like a procession of half-thawed statues. Everyone layers on thick robes and padded jackets. Your grandmother pulls a pair of socks from her sleeve like a magician and insists you wear them. You do not argue with that kind of power. Breakfast is hot and hearty. Barley porridge with pickled plums, salted salmon flaked onto steamed rice, and miso soup so thick it's basically a potion. You eat slowly, watching steam rise from your bowl, and try not to think about how cold your toes still are. Snow days don't mean no work. This isn't some whimsical Edo period holiday movie. But they do mean different work. Instead of the fields, you're sent to help clean and maintain the tool shed, which has recently acquired both a draft and a raccoon. You step inside and are greeted by the unmistakable smell of damp straw, rusted metal, and raccoon regret. You sweep out the old hay and check the tools, hoes, sickles, baskets, and something that might have once been a rake, but now resembles a very confused pitchfork. The raccoon, fortunately, seems to have vacated. Probably off to terrorize someone else's shed by now. Midway through, your cousin stops by with a gift. A freshly stitched pair of straw snow sandals. They look like someone tried to weave pancakes into shoes, but they're surprisingly warm and, crucially, don't freeze solid like your usual footwear. You try them on. Your cousin nods in approval. You are now officially winter-proof, or at least winter-resistant. Once the shed is in order, your father calls you over for some roof maintenance. Apparently, snow piling too heavily can collapse the thatch. You nod solemnly and pretend not to notice how much your legs are trembling at the idea of climbing a ladder covered in frost. Up you go anyway, gripping each rung like it owes you money. From the roof, the view is spectacular. You can see the entire village, smoke curling from chimneys, children bundled like dumplings chasing each other with snowballs, and a group of elders huddled around a fire like plotting tanuki. The air is sharp and clean, tinged with wood smoke and the scent of pine. You brush the snow from the roof, working methodically, though you're 80% sure this is just an excuse for your father to point at things from up high and pretend he's in charge of everything. Still, it's strangely peaceful. You even start humming, and then a snowball hits you in the back. You whirl around. Your brother is below, grinning like he just invented joy. He pelts you again. You grab a chunk of snow and retaliate. He dodges, barely. A small war breaks out. Eventually, your grandmother comes outside and threatens to confiscate both your sandals if you keep disturbing the harmony of the neighborhood. You surrender. The war is over. Your brother blows you a raspberry as he flees. After lunch, leftover hot pot and fresh pickles, you join the community group tasked with clearing snow from the narrow village paths. Everyone's armed with brooms, shovels, or just their own stubborn determination. The snow is heavy, clinging to everything. You push, scrape, and sweep until your shoulders burn and your breath comes in clouds. A neighbor slips and lands in a snowbank with a dignified oof. You help him up. He blames the ancestors. You nod solemnly. Everyone laughs. Historians still argue whether snow clearing was more about utility or a socially accepted way to gossip and show off new gloves. By late afternoon, the village is buzzing with cold weather routines. You watch someone hang salted fish on a rack to freeze dry, a process that makes the fish look mildly haunted, but somehow even tastier. Another neighbor is chiseling a pattern into her snow-covered garden path because, according to her, the gods appreciate aesthetics. You believe her. That path is gorgeous. Back at home, it's bath time. The bathhouse is a small wooden structure separate from the main house, its roof sagging slightly under the snow. You heat the water using a wood-fired boiler. The scent of smoke and cedar fills the air as steam rises in curling tendrils. You undress quickly and slide into the water, trying not to yelp at how hot it is. But once you settle in, it's bliss. Your muscles sigh in relief. Your fingers uncramp. You lean back and close your eyes. For a while, there is only warmth, and the occasional creak of the wood as the snow shifts above. After your bath, you wrap yourself in a cotton robe and sit by the hearth. Your hair still damp, your cheeks pink from the heat. You sip hot tea while your mother mends a sleeve and your father reads a scroll aloud, some tale about a mountain monk who defeats a demon with pickled radish and persistence. Someone knocks on the door. It's a traveling merchant, caught by the snow, asking for shelter. Of course, he's welcomed in. A spare futon is laid out, and he's given hot tea and a bowl of porridge. He has stories. Oh, so many stories. He talks about Kyoto's Lantern Festival, a bridge that sings when you cross it, and a haunted bell that only rings in dreams. Everyone listens, eyes wide, mouths open, soup forgotten. The evening stretches on with more tales, more tea, and the feeling that winter, while inconvenient, also brings its own kind of magic. You fall asleep that night wrapped in warmth, not just from the blankets, but from the shared presence of family, of neighbors, of strangers turned friends. The wind howls outside, but inside, it's quiet. It's safe. It's home. The snow lingers for days, maybe weeks. Time loses a little of its edge when the landscape is draped in white, and your days begin to blur into a pattern of warm breakfasts, frosty chores, and long evenings spent hovering near the hearth like a moth with a blanket. You get used to the squeak of your straw sandals on packed snow, the slow drip of melting icicles from the eaves, and the way your breath fogs in delicate loops each morning. There's something deeply soothing about the repetition of it all. You start to think you could live like this forever, until someone hands you a broom and points at the barn roof. Ah yes, time to earn your next meal. You trudge out with a few others, the snow crunching underfoot, and you spend the better part of the day sweeping snow, knocking icicles loose, and trying not to slide off anything high. One poor soul does exactly that, and lands in a pile of straw, laughing so hard they can't stand up again. You help them out, but not before you make a mental note to tell your brother. It's the kind of story he lives for. The barn itself is a sleeping beast in winter. The animals are quieter, moving more slowly, breathing steam into the cold air. You pat the cows on their shaggy flanks, toss extra straw into the goat pens, and marvel at how the chickens manage to look perpetually offended by the snow. They cluck at you with a kind of righteous indignation, and you apologize. It seems like the right thing to do. Lunch is late, and your cheeks are raw from the wind by the time you make it back home. You warm your hands over the coals, which pop and hiss as you hover them a little too close. Someone hands you a rice ball wrapped in a pickled leaf. You bite into it and immediately feel like the world is manageable again. That afternoon, you and your sister are sent to fetch water from the village well. It's not far, but the path is slippery, and your bucket feels heavier than usual. She hums as you go, some old folk tune about a snow maiden who steals warmth from the careless. You walk faster. The well is half frozen, a crust of ice lining the edge. You chip at it carefully, lower the bucket, and listen as it splashes somewhere, far below. As you wait for it to fill, you glance up and catch the flicker of movement among the trees. Something fast, something silent. Probably a fox, possibly a commie. Either way, you nod at it respectfully, just in case. You carry the bucket home between you, your arms aching, but your balance impressively intact. Your sister only slips once, and you only laugh, a little. Back at home, preparations are already underway for a community gathering. A midwinter ceremony, small and local, but still important. Everyone has a role. Yours, apparently, is lantern maintenance. That means checking bamboo frames for breaks, replacing torn paper, and carefully brushing off any soot from the candles. It's slow work, but strangely satisfying. Each lantern is a tiny world, and as you tend them, you wonder about the hands that made them, the nights they've glowed through, and the secrets they've heard flickering in the dark. You help hang them on hooks, on strings, from trees and poles, and every conceivable surface. By sunset, the village is transformed. Soft pools of light dot every corner, making the snow sparkle like someone sprinkled it with powdered stars. As darkness deepens, villagers begin to gather. There's no grand entrance, no trumpets or fanfare, just people arriving in twos and threes, bundled against the cold, carrying gifts of food and drink, laughter and news. Someone sets out a drum, someone else starts singing. Not a performance, just a melody shared like a bowl of hot soup. You find a spot near the fire and let the warmth soak into your knees as the festivities swell around you. The food is simple but abundant. Mochi grilled over hot coals, roasted chestnuts, small rice cakes pressed into shapes that make your grandmother roll her eyes. Those didn't look like rabbits when I was young. You eat until your belly protests, and then sneak one more anyway. There's a storyteller tonight, too. An old man with a voice like cracked bamboo and a beard that could probably get its own land rights. He tells a tale about a snow witch who dances across frozen lakes, freezing time with each step. Everyone leans in. Even the littlest kids fall silent. Historians still argue whether these seasonal tales were ancient memory or fresh invention, fables passed down or just really good. Improvisation around a fire. You vote for both. As the night stretches on, you drift from group to group. You catch a game of Karuta, slapping cards with poetic verses. You lose spectacularly to a grandmother who claims the secret is just living long enough. You attempt a few snow carvings with the children. Yours is either a cat or a misbehaving radish. Jury's still out. Then a hush falls. Someone's brought out the sacred mask. It's carved wood, smooth and pale, painted with the exaggerated features of an old forest spirit. When the dancer steps forward wearing it, everything shifts. The Fire pops, shadows lean inward, and the air holds its breath. The dance is slow and deliberate, a series of movements meant to mimic wind, snow, the way trees creak under ice. It's mesmerizing. You're not sure how long it lasts. Time stops in the way it only does during moments that don't want to be remembered too quickly. When it's over, no one claps. You don't have to. You return home later than usual. Your robe dusted with snow, your heart still holding pieces of the dance. Your family helps you out of your outer layers, and you all sit a while longer by the hearth, just to stretch the warmth. Your father says, "We've made it halfway through the cold." Your grandmother replies, "Speak for yourself, my knees still think it's the Ice Age." Everyone laughs. Even your brother, who's nearly asleep sitting up. You finally crawl into bed. Your legs sore, your nose cold, but your soul oddly light. The glow of the lantern still lingers in your mind's eye, flickering gently as you pull the quilt up to your chin. Outside, the snow falls softly again. This time, you don't mind. Your eyelids feel glued shut the next morning. Not because you're especially tired, though, let's be real, you are, but because someone, somewhere, has made the brilliant decision to stoke the hearth at an ungodly hour, and now smoke has sneakily filled the room just enough to make your face feel like a smoked herring. You sit up, eyes watering, coughing delicately like an aristocrat with a dramatic backstory, and shuffle toward the window for some fresh air. Outside, the world has transformed again. The snow has melted a little, and now everything is glazed with a thin, slippery sheen of ice. You are going to fall at some point today. That is not a guess. That is a prophecy. After a quick wash with water that feels approximately the temperature of betrayal, you're roped into helping your uncle prepare for the upcoming town market. This is no ordinary outing. It's a big deal. The local market only pops up once every few weeks in winter, and it's a chance to trade, gossip, and accidentally spend the week's miso money on handmade combs or singing frogs carved from driftwood. Yes, those exist. No, they do not actually sing. But don't let the truth ruin a good sales pitch. You bundle up in layers thick enough to qualify as armor and help load the sled. You pack straw brooms, hand-woven baskets, fermented goods, a few lacquered bowls. Your aunt has been hoarding like they're national treasures, and a handful of charms meant to ward off evil winds. No one knows what an evil wind is, but your grandmother insists they're real and deeply rude. The path to the market is long and winding. You trudge alongside the sled, occasionally slipping on frozen patches and trying not to swear in front of your younger cousin, who is inconveniently good at tattling. Birds call from the bare branches above, sounding as cranky about the cold as you are. You pass a group of monks traveling in the opposite direction, their sandals barely making a sound on the frost. They nod politely. You nod back, trying to look serene and spiritual and not like someone who just nearly fell into a rice ditch. You arrive at the market by midday. It's already humming with energy. Stalls are packed tightly together, steam rising from food carts, and the air is filled with the mingling aromas of grilled mochi, soy-glazed sweet potatoes, and roasted tea. Somewhere, someone is playing. A shamisen slightly out of tune, which adds charm. Or confusion. Hard to tell. Your uncle sets up your family's stall with practiced ease. You're put in charge of customer attraction, which turns out to mean smiling a lot, shouting about pickled daikon, and pretending not to be freezing to death. You attract exactly 3 customers, and 1 very suspicious cat in between. Transactions: you wander the aisles of the market. You admire finely crafted knives, try on a straw hat that immediately falls over your eyes, and listen to a vendor explain, quite passionately, that their hand-inked talismans have been personally blessed by a traveling spirit. Historians still argue whether these talismans were serious spiritual artifacts or just very well-marketed souvenirs. You buy a tiny lacquered box for your mother, because it's beautiful, and because she'll probably cry and insist it's too nice, and then hide it in her sewing kit forever. Food, of course, is the real star of the market. You sample piping hot dumplings filled with chestnut paste, slurp a cup of amazaki that warms you down to your socks, and try something that is either dried squid or old rope. You never get a clear answer. You eat it anyway. Regret is minimal. As the sun begins to dip low, a traveling theater troupe arrives and sets up a makeshift stage. They perform a comical tale about a lazy farmer, a talking carp, and a mischievous tanuki with a gambling problem. It's absurd and delightful and, honestly, way more relatable than it should be. The crowd laughs until they wheeze. Even your uncle chuckles. And he's notoriously immune to humor unless it involves someone falling into mud. Later, you find a corner near the fire pit where elders gather to sip tea and reminisce about real winters, which apparently involved more snow, fewer snacks, and uphill walks in both directions. One woman tells you she once saw a fox transform into a beautiful woman and back again. You ask her what the fox wanted. Snacks, she says, deadpan. Same as anyone. By nightfall, you help pack up what didn't sell, which includes, regrettably, the charms for evil winds. Your grandmother will be disappointed. That's how they get in, she'll mutter ominously. You'll nod, because honestly, you've seen enough oddities today to believe just about anything. The journey home is colder, darker, and quieter. The stars above are sharp and clear, and you wonder how ancient travelers used them to navigate before the invention of trail gossip and nosy neighbors. You try to match constellations, but most of them just look like snacks to you now. There's one that might be a dumpling. You arrive back at the village just in time to see smoke curling from every chimney. The scent of cedar and pine kindling wraps around you like a blanket. Your mother meets you at the gate, eyes tired but warm, and takes the lacquered box with a smile that makes the whole trip worth it. Dinner is simple but perfect. Rice porridge with pickled mustard greens, a soft-boiled egg, and tea strong enough to reboot your brain. You soak your feet in warm water while your brother regales everyone with exaggerated stories about the market, most of which you correct, loudly and with flair. Afterward, you lie back by the hearth, the coals still glowing, and let your eyes drift shut while someone plays a slow tune on a bamboo flute. The notes rise and fall like wind across the mountains, and the hush that settles over the house is so complete you can hear the fire whispering to itself. Tomorrow will bring more snow, more chores, more everything. But right now, you're just a kid full of tea, wrapped in warmth, and finally resting your feet. There's something about waking up before the sun that feels like cheating, like you're stepping behind the curtain of the world before it's ready to perform. The house is still, wrapped in darkness and the faint scent of wood smoke. You rise quietly, feet hitting the tatami with that gentle, papery whisper, and tug on your robe. Outside, the stars are just beginning to lose their grip on the sky. A pale blush tinges the horizon, and the air has that extra crispness that makes your nose sting and your brain question every life decision that led to getting up this early. But you were chosen today, lucky you, to help the village priest prepare for a purification ritual at the nearby shrine. It's not glamorous. It involves a lot of sweeping, but also a chance to sneak behind the scenes of one of the most mysterious and sacred spaces you've grown up with. You walk up the narrow, winding path through the forest, your lantern bobbing in your hand, lighting the trees in flickering golds and reds like they're blushing under your gaze. The shrine is quiet when you arrive. Not spooky, just asleep. There's a chill that sinks into your bones, and not just from the weather. The kind of chill that whispers, "Don't mess this up." The priest is already there, of course. He's older than most trees you've met and twice as serious. He nods at you and gestures to the broom. It begins. You sweep the stone steps, the gravel path, even the mossy corners where sunlight barely touches. Each stroke is rhythmic, intentional. You're not just cleaning. You're helping reset the world. That's how the priest puts it anyway. When we clean the shrine, he says, we remind the spirits that we still care, that we're still listening. You nod solemnly, even as your fingers go numb. Later you help hang Shimenawa ropes and paper streamers, the white zigzag shide flapping softly in the breeze. There's an eerie beauty to it. You feel like you're decorating for invisible guests, and you half expect to hear them sigh their approval. The purification itself is a quiet affair. The priest chants, waves his gohei wand, and rings a bell that cuts through the cold like a blade through silk. You bow deeply, twice, clap twice, then bow again. The movements feel ancient, older than memory, etched into the rhythm of your body, like an inherited heartbeat. Historians still argue whether rituals like these were strictly religious or also deeply political. Ways to keep social order through shared awe. Either way, the effect is real. You walk away from the shrine feeling lighter, cleaner, like someone swept out your ribcage while you weren't looking. Back home, breakfast tastes better than usual. Rice, miso soup, and grilled fish. Simple. Perfect. Your grandmother compliments your shrine aura, and you immediately trip over a stool. Aura shattered. The rest of the day is devoted to helping mend tools. Winter is hard on everything. Buckets split, ropes fray, blades dull. You and your cousin sit by the shed with a pile of tasks and a small brazier to keep your fingers from falling off. You sharpen knives on a whetstone, rewrap broom handles, and try to remember all the little tricks your uncle taught you about tightening wood joints. He once told you, a broken tool is like a lie. It still works for a bit, but eventually someone gets hurt. You didn't understand it then. You're not entirely sure you understand it now. But it sounds wise, so you nod whenever he says it. After lunch, you get to visit the traveling apothecary who set up shop at the edge of the village. He's a wiry old man with eyebrows like overgrown moss, and a cart that smells like the inside of a scroll. Dried herbs hang from every corner, and tiny drawers hide everything from plum pills to mysterious pastes with questionable ingredients. You're sent to fetch a tonic for your mother's sore joints. The apothecary sniffs the air around you, squints and says, "Ah, you've been around spirits today." You blink. He offers you a ginger candy and tells you to wear red thread around your wrist for the next 3 days. Just in case. You accept both with the seriousness of a ninja receiving secret orders. Quirky healers aside, the village leans heavily on herbal medicine. Before modern science could slap barcodes on everything, people turned to the land for cures. Mugwort for bruises, yarrow for fever, persimmon vinegar for just about everything else. Your mother swears by pine needle baths, even though the last one left you smelling like a festive floor cleaner for 3 days. The sky darkens early in winter, and by late afternoon, the golden light has already started slipping behind the trees. You spend the final hours before sunset gathering kindling, stacking it in neat rows and pretending you don't hear the chickens judging you from their coop. One of them pecks your heel. You mentally add it to your enemies list. Dinner is a hot pot bubbling with root vegetables, tofu, and slices of fatty fish. Everyone hovers around it, dipping their bowls, blowing on each bite, sharing small bits of conversation between slurps. Someone brings up the apothecary, and your father snorts. "That man once told me my aura was crooked." Your grandmother nods solemnly. "Well, it is." The laughter that follows is warm and effortless. Later, you and your sister stretch out, near the fire pit, your backs against folded quilts. She asks you what it felt like at the shrine, and you try to put it into words. How the silence made you feel small but important. Like a comma in a sentence you didn't quite understand. She blinks, then nods like she gets it. Maybe she does. The night is quiet. A soft wind whistles outside, brushing the eaves like a careful hand. Somewhere, a nightbird calls once and is silent. You lie back, let your eyes close, and feel the day slip away in slow, gentle waves. You dream of paper, streamers fluttering above sacred stone, of bell chimes echoing through frosted trees, and of tiny fox prints leading somewhere you're not supposed to follow, but might anyway. Dawn creeps in slow and pale today, casting a gentle gray light that feels like the world is still rubbing sleep from its eyes. You pull on your thick robe, the one with patches on the elbows your grandmother insists you'll grow into one day, and step outside. The ground beneath your feet is soft with thawing snow, turning familiar paths into slippery puzzles. Your task, this morning, check the village's irrigation channels. Not exactly thrilling, but absolutely necessary. The rice fields may sleep under winter's blanket, but water must still be carefully managed, or risk turning everything to mush come spring. You join a small group of neighbors, baskets slung over their shoulders, boots squelching as you follow the frozen river's edge. The air is thick with the scent of damp earth and old wood, and somewhere nearby, a cat is having a very serious argument with a crow. The channels are narrow trenches carved into the earth, lined with stones and bamboo. Today's job is clearing, away fallen branches, ice chunks, and the occasional mystery clump of something sticky and orange. You eye it suspiciously, but no one else seems interested in identifying it. Historians still argue whether these irrigation methods were brought from China or developed independently, but everyone agrees they were absolutely brilliant. Without them, rice farming wouldn't be the lifeblood of the village. While you work, your thoughts drift. You wonder how many hands have cleared these channels before you. How many children have tramped through this exact mud? And what stories those old stones might tell if they could speak. Probably a lot about stubborn goats and one particularly mischievous tanuki. But maybe some about seasons, love, and loss too. Mid-morning brings a break, and you settle by a stream with a thermos of tea. The water babbles softly, carrying pieces of last night's frost downstream. The chill nips at your fingers, and you decide to stash a handful of dried persimmons in your pocket for later. A sweet reward for your efforts. On your way back, you pass a craftsman's hut. The blacksmith is hammering away at a small iron tool, something delicate and precise. Sparks fly like tiny fireflies, and the rhythmic clang is oddly hypnotic. You linger for a moment, admiring the skill it takes to shape metal with just heat and willpower. You're reminded of the debate scholars often have about whether these tools were mainly practical or also symbols of status and power within the village. Either way, it's clear the blacksmith holds an essential place in everyone's daily life. Afternoon arrives with a sudden shift. Clouds gather, and a fine drizzle begins, turning the melting snow into a soft, slushy mess. You dash home, feet slipping, laughing as your cousin tries to catch you with a soggy broom. Back inside, the warmth of the hearth feels like a hug. You peel off your soaked clothes and wrap yourself in a thick quilt, the scent of pine smoke curling through the room. Your grandmother is quietly sewing, her fingers deft and steady, while your mother prepares a stew that smells like comfort itself. Dinner is a quiet affair. The stew bubbles gently, filled with root vegetables, mushrooms, and a hint of miso. You savor each bite, the flavors deep and earthy, a perfect counterpoint to the damp chill outside. Afterwards, you help clear the table and lay out tomorrow's chores, which include mending fishing nets and collecting firewood. Your brother complains about the monotony, but secretly, you know he'll be the first one up in the morning, already halfway through his list. As night falls, you step outside. One last time. The village is cloaked in mist, the lanterns casting soft pools of orange glow that seem to hold back the darkness just a little longer. You breathe in the cool, wet air, letting it fill your lungs and calm your restless mind. You think about the irrigation channels, the blacksmith's hammer, the endless rhythm of work and rest that keeps this place alive. It's not glamorous, it's not fast, but it is real. And in that reality, there is a kind of peace. You step back inside, the door closing softly behind you. The quiet hum of the hearth and the gentle crackle of burning wood lull you towards sleep. You close your eyes and imagine the water flowing, steady and sure, beneath the thawing earth, carrying life forward, just like you. The cold air hits you first thing in the morning, sharper than yesterday, like winter's final reminder before it loosens its grip. You pull your robe tighter, trying to seal in every bit of warmth like a sneaky squirrel hoarding acorns for spring. Your breath forms little clouds, drifting away like tiny ghosts disappearing into the gray sky. Today, your job is to help with the village's communal weaving project. That's right. You're about to spend hours sitting still, fingers busy but mind wandering, in the company of mostly chatty grandmothers and a few shy apprentices. It's not exactly a roller coaster, but this slow dance with thread and loom weaves a different kind of magic. You enter the weaving hut, a low wooden structure with paper windows that let in filtered light, turning dust motes into tiny stars. The scent of freshly harvested hemp and linen laces the air, mixed with the faint aroma of ink from calligraphy practice somewhere nearby. Your grandmother greets you with a smile that wrinkles the corners of her eyes and hands you a bundle of dyed threads. She doesn't say much because the work speaks in its own language, a rhythm of shuttle passing, threads pulling taut, and the occasional hum of a folk tune. You watch the looms clacking softly, the fabric slowly growing under skilled hands. Patterns twist and turn in subtle waves of indigo and brown, telling stories you can't quite read yet, but feel in your bones. There's a strange comfort in the repetitive motions, like a heartbeat syncing with your own. As you work, you overhear snippets of conversation. Someone complains about the cold fingers that make threading a needle a Herculean task. Another talks about the best way to dye fabric using persimmon juice, a trick learned from a traveling merchant last summer. Apparently the color deepens over time, turning fabrics into shifting shades of rusty sunset. Historians still argue whether these communal weaving projects were purely practical or also a way to strengthen social bonds. And honestly, after hours in this room, you're inclined to believe it's a bit of both. You try your hand at the loom, your fingers fumbling at first, tangled in threads like a cat caught in yarn. But slowly, with your grandmother's patient guidance, you find a rhythm. It's not perfect, but it's yours. By midday, the hut fills with warmth, not just from the sun filtering through, but from the quiet companionship and shared purpose. The women pass around a small lunch of rice balls, pickled vegetables, and hot tea, exchanging stories about past winters, strange visitors, and the one time a tanuki supposedly danced through the village square at midnight. You're skeptical about the tanuki tale, but the laughter it sparks is infectious. Besides, everyone loves a good mischievous animal story, especially when reality feels slow and predictable. After the meal, you return to the weaving, fingers moving more confidently. The threads slip between your hands like silk ribbons, the pattern emerging as if by magic. You think about how this fabric will one day become a kimono, worn by someone you may never meet, but who will carry a piece of your village with them. In the late afternoon, a sudden gust rattles the paper windows, reminding everyone that winter isn't quite done yet. You help secure the shutters and prepare the hut for the night, carefully storing the half-finished fabric and tools. Walking home, your steps are lighter. There's something peaceful about creation, the slow build of something beautiful from simple strands, much like the rhythms of your days here. It's a reminder that even when the world... By midday, the sun breaks through clouds, warming your shoulders and drying your sleeves. You take a moment to rest, sipping water from a shared gourd, the taste fresh and cool. It's a simple pleasure, but one that feels luxurious after the cold days of winter. After lunch, you help haul timber and repair the wooden framework around the well. The work is slow and steady, but there's satisfaction in each secure nail and carefully placed plank. The well feels stronger, ready to serve the village through another season. As evening falls, the village gathers around the well for a small ceremony, a ritual of thanks and hope for abundant water in the coming months. Lanterns float on the water's surface, flickering like fireflies, casting dancing shadows on the faces of neighbors and friends. You join the circle, feeling a quiet pride in this simple act of community and care. The well is more than stone and water. It's a symbol of connection, resilience, and shared life. Night deepens as you walk home, the scent of plum blossoms lingering, and the stars beginning to peek through the darkening sky. You pause briefly to look back at the well, its surface calm and reflective, and you feel a deep sense of peace settle within you. Tonight, as you lay down to sleep, the image of that still water, glowing softly